Psalm chapter 3, verse 1. A song for David, while a running of him before Absalom, the son of him. So the first phrase, Mizmor LeDavid, is a potential genitive construction. It depends on how you want to render the le preposition. So it could either mean a song of David, a song belonging to David. David would be the author of the song, or it is to be translated as for, a song dedicated to David, a song for David. So both options are possible. Then we have an infinitive construct with a preposition attached and a pronominal suffix that functions as a subject. So while a running of him, or in proper English, while he ran, or fled. Barach can be translated as fleeing as well, to run away or to flee while he fled from the face of Absalom, his son. We have here a compound word, min and pne. Min pne as a compound is to be translated as before. You see also in English this is actually a compound before, but don't overthink it, just translate before. Before Absalom, his son. So obviously his son is an apposition to Absalom. Absalom, his son. Verse 2. Yahweh, what many are my oppressors, many rising are over me. Or in proper English, Yahweh, what many are my oppressors, many are rising against me. So what you see is a nominal clause at the end of this verse. We have many rising above me or against me. So kamim as your participle functions as a predicate complement. So many are rising above me, while rabim would be your subject. And then alai is obviously an indirect object, or if you take a valence approach, a complement. Verse 3. Many saying to the soul of mine, there is no salvation for him in God. Selah is a word that we don't translate. Many are saying. So you see again here a nominal clause with a participle functioning as your predicate complement. So many subject are saying to my soul, and now the direct speech starts. There is no, in is a negation of nominal clauses. Negation only in nominal clauses. There is no salvation for him in God. Verse 4. And you, Adonai, shield on behalf of me, glory of mine, and riser or rising the head of me. So you see here a series of nominal clauses typical for discursive texts, typical for psalms in particular. So we are using nominal clauses in order to make statements. You, Yahweh, shield on my behalf. So you, Yahweh, are my shield. And the next clause is glory of mine, so you are my glory, and riser of my head, the one who lifts up my head. So we have three nominal clauses here, with kavodi being just one word nominal clause. Verse 5. Voice of mine to Adonai I cry, and he answered me from the mountain, the Holy One of him, or the sanctuary of him. And then again, we don't translate this. So my voice is to the Lord, I cry. It's ambiguous where we have to make our clause divisions here. It could be argued that this is one clause, namely, I cry my voice. In this case, this would be our direct object. I am crying, here's our predicate. I cry my voice to the Lord. In this case, we have a lot of fronting taking place, so the direct object as well as the indirect object are being fronted, while the predicate is being pushed to the back. That is a possible rendering. But one could also argue that we have two clauses here, namely, my voice is to the Lord, and then the new clause would be, I cry. Yeah, so both options are possible. And then we have a little Weigtoll clause. So Wolfgang Schneider, grammarians in his tradition, would call this a branch narration. So a little narration within a discourse, and he answered me from the mountain of his sanctuary. So this is a construct relationship from the mountain of his sanctuary. Ani. Verse 6. I lay down, and I sleep. I wake up because Yahweh sustains me, or Yahweh supports me. You see here in the first clause, Ani shachafti, we have an explicit subject which matches our verbal ending. So we have a stress of the first person. I go to bed, I lay down, and then we have a Weigtoll here. You see a little branch narration again, as we saw earlier with the previous verse. And I slept, and then all of a sudden we break the branch narration by not having a Weigtoll anymore and render here a Katal tense. I wake up, and then clause opening, key always opens a new clause. Yeah, Adonai sustains me. So I woke up because Adonai sustains me, as if he wants to sleep, but Adonai wants him to be awake. Verse 7. Not I fear the manifold, the many people, which a surrounding they place against me. Or proper English, I don't fear multitudes of people who place a surrounding against me, or a siege against me. Now let's move into the details of this construction. So we see a negated Yektoll, not do I fear, and then we have a bigger direct object phrase, the many people, or the multitude of people. Well, I should have said we have an indirect object. You see here the preposition, so technically this is a complement, an indirect object, not a direct object. Direct object must be nominal phrases. However, in English, the word yara, the word to fear, has a direct object, while in to be afraid of. While in Hebrew, it always has, it requires a prepositional phrase if it triggers the meaning of to be afraid of. Similar to English, actually, to be afraid of. You can be afraid of something, and this is being triggered here. I am not afraid of a multitude of people, which, then a relative clause that gives us more information about about the multitude of people, which a surrounding they are placing against me. Verse 8. Rise, Adonai, rise, Yahweh, save me, my God. Yeah, hit all the enemies of mine. And this is a complex construction. You see here that we have also text critical information here. So therefore, I'll just try to adapt my translation to the text critical issue here, namely, hit all my enemies at the cheek. Teeth of the evil ones you break. A couple of comments here to make sense of this verse. Obviously, the beginning is pretty clear. We have a imperative followed by a vocative, and then we have again an imperative followed by a vocative. So rise, Yahweh, save me, God. And then we have a new clause starting, a key clause. This key obviously is not marking the start of a dependent clause. It is an independent clause, and when a key starts an independent clause, the best way to translate it in English, I would suggest, is to say, yeah, hit all my enemies. We see the direct object marker, hit all my enemies. So the direct object would end with oyevai, hit all my enemies. And then you have lechi, which means cheek. So in Hebrew, we must assume that there is some sort of preposition being missed. It could be be, in the cheek, or at the cheek, to the cheek, and to hit them towards the cheek. Probably be is the best preposition. And when you look up the text critical apparatus, you'll see some of the suggestions or some of the renderings of ancient translations that also try to add a preposition or word to make sense out of this. So, and hit all my enemies at their cheek. And then a new clause starts, shine, teeth of the enemies you break. The final comment has to do with the katal clauses that we find here. It's unexpected, particularly after we have seen the imperatives kumma and hoshieni. So these katal clauses are best understood as a continuation of these imperatives. And you shall hit thou, you must hit all my enemies at their cheek, or at the cheek, and teeth of the evil ones you must break. Verse 9. To Yahweh is the salvation. Over your people, the blessing of you. So obviously we have two nominal clauses here. The first nominal clause is picking up the direct speech that the psalmist is quoting here about his enemies. And you see that direct speech here in verse 3. Many are saying there is no salvation for him in God. You see the word Yeshuata is being picked up right here again. So now it is being said that it's Yahweh who's the owner of salvation. So salvation belongs to the Lord. And in that sense, it's an ironic reversal of what the enemies are saying in verse 3. The psalmist confirms that the many enemies who are speaking against him are correct. Salvation does not belong to David, but belongs to God. But since it belongs to God, it is God who decides whether David can be saved or not, and not the enemies that are speaking badly to David. The second nominal clause here in verse 9, al-amcha birkecheta, that is our second nominal clause. Against, you see here, fronting against, on your people is your blessing. We would have normal order. It would have the subject being fronted or being the first position. Your blessing is on your people. But obviously the psalmist wants to stress on your people, your blessing is. This was Psalm chapter 3.